Before we take everything to the finish line, let's actually also learn about how we can render arrays into components onto our screen, and how do we add conditionals. That way we're able to render things conditionally without a lot of imperative code. So right over here, I had to create this 3 task items onto my list. But we know that we're gonna need to start capturing this into a state. So here I'll create my tasks state, set tasks to equal use state. And the initial value for this will be an empty array. Or we can actually go ahead and populate it with our data right over here. So ID 1 will have a title of task 1. And the done property for it is false. And let's do it again for number 2 and number 3. Let's set the first one maybe to true, just so you can see how they look differently. And then here, instead of having to add them individually, I'm gonna need to do some JavaScript expressions here. So we know that in JavaScript, arrays have those for each and .map functions, which basically iterate over all the elements within an array. The only difference between the two is that one of them returned something, and that is the .map. So over here, I'm gonna iterate over my tasks, and I'll use the .map function. And for each task, I'll need to return the following. Basically a task item where the ID is gonna be task.id, and the title will be task.title, and finally done is task.done. And that's it. I'm able to render my list dynamically using a .map function. So I'm basically treating it as if it was regular JavaScript code instead of HTML code. Let me save this. And right over here, you see that the component has updated and we're able to see all of those items populated here. In the components view, we're seeing this error message that basically signifies to us, if I click on it, that says each child in a list should have a unique property or a unique key. The reason behind that is because React has to take this and converts it into our virtual DOM, they need to have something that identifies or signifies the difference between all the task items that we're adding to this list. So for that, we're gonna have to add a new property here. We'll call it key. And here you can make it anything as long as they are unique. So for me, I'll do task dash the ID. So task dash task ID. This will ensure that each one of those are unique. If I wanted to make this a little bit cleaner, since I don't like having long lines of code in JavaScript, I could do it like this. And here we go. Each one of those task items, they get an individual key. There are no longer errors that basically says, I don't know which one is which. All right, so what if we were to add a button that toggles on and off the ability to add a task or not? So for this section right here, let me actually take it and extract it into a separate component. So I'll go into my source. I'll create a new task component, JSX. This will export a function. This function is called add new task. And for now, this is all it returns, just the HTML view. I'll switch over here and let's add new task as a component. All right, so I want to be able to view that conditionally. So let's say if I have a variable here, which I'll call it view new task form. And we'll set this to false for now. Over here, I'll wrap this in a JavaScript expression. So basically adding the curly brackets, I could do something like view new task form. If this is true, then I want you to show me this component. Otherwise, you can show me null. All right, so now that is gone. If I go back here and update it to true, it comes back on. Now, what if I wanted to add a button that will basically drive that functionality? So let me add the button component that on click, it will set the value of view new task form. We'll set that to the opposite of whatever it is right now. So basically toggle it on and off. Now we already know that we can't really do that. Let's see what I'm doing wrong here. Not close it. So let's do show form. This needs to be a state instead. So, well, technically this is also complaining about this being a constant rather than a let. But even if we do it as let, the functionality is still not going to work. So let me go ahead and convert that to a state. So we wrap it in our array so that we can destructure it out of our use state. And let's set this to false. So by default, it would not be visible. And here we'll have set view new task form. And over here, when this button is clicked, we want to call set view new task form. And we want to set this value to whatever the opposite of whatever it is right now. Let's try it out. Now by default, it's gone. But if I click on show form, it comes back on, click on it again, and it goes away. Another way we can add this conditional rendering thing here is if my two states are either it is there or it's not there, instead of having a ternary operator, we could do something like this, where we would add the double and % here. And basically that means if this is true, then I want to be able to see it. Otherwise, it's gone. The ternary operator is great if you want to have kind of two states. Like if we toggle this on, I want to see the add new task form. Otherwise, I want to see something else. In that case, you would replace this with another component that you would rather render in the false case of the view new task form variable here. So both of these here, they kind of do the same thing. I'll leave them both, but obviously in that case, when I hit show form, I'm seeing two new tasks rather than one. And keep in mind, these are two separate instances of our add new task component here. All right, so now we pretty much have all the basics that we need for our functionality here. So in the next video, we'll take this to the finish line and we'll complete the functionality of our application.